Hello, hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of our Wired for Success show with my colleague Steve Costello and myself, Patience Modevi. And today we are talking to you about strengthening your mind muscle. So this episode is really geared towards not only the young people but also the parents, and looking at what we can do on a day-to-day basis to kind of support our mindset. Steve, uh, um, Steve shared a quote with me last week, and I think it's so relevant. He says, "If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change." From Wayne Dyer, and we're going to talk a little bit about what can you do to maybe change the way you look at things.
Yeah. Well, hi, everybody. I think one of the things about that Wayne Dyer quote, first, I love that quote. I think it's really cool, but it can be misinterpreted quite easily. So change the way you look at things, and the things that you look at will change. If you say to that somebody, to what happened to my words then? They all went the wrong way around. If you say that to somebody who is going through a tough and challenging time, you need to look at this tough and challenging time differently. That's going to hurt. Well, how can I look at it differently? I don't know what to do about it. It's difficult enough as it is. Never mind asking me to change my ways. So it can be very frustrating. So we've got to be careful about how we use some of these quotations. But I think the Dyer one is very, very appropriate. The other thing as well, so I mentioned to Patience in our chat a few minutes ago about positive thinking. So people, how many times have you seen out there on the internet, think positively?
Mm.
Well, it's not that easy, is it? Come on. Is it easy to just think positively when the world is falling down around you and things are falling on top of you? You've got exams coming up. You've just split up with a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. There's all kinds of stuff happening in your world, and somebody's telling you to think positively. Well, that doesn't work. It doesn't always work, does it? Um, so one of the things that I practice, and it's something I'm working on with a couple of clients in particular at the moment, is not simply positive thinking, but feeding our engine of positivity. And referring to it, it's kind of a metaphor, this engine of positivity. So the engine, like a car, needs fuel. So if you give it fuel and you maintain it, it keeps going and it keeps going. So in other words, it stays positive. If we don't feed it, it stops working. If we feed it only negativity, it stops working. So we need to be conscious of what we're feeding into our engine of positivity. Thinking positivity, as I said a few minutes ago, it doesn't work. So what we need to do is think about our emotions. So we've got lots of emotions. Patience and I could brainstorm a huge long list, but I focus on 10 in particular. And I'm going to read them out because I always leave something out if I don't. So there's joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, hope, pride, amusement, inspiration, awe, and the big one, you could say it's a big one, love. So if we notice in our day-to-day lives when we see something that makes us awestruck, like, whoa, wow, look at that. So did you hear that? Notice it. Notice what it makes you feel like. I mean, really feel like. Does it feel great? Does it give you a kind
Mm.
of tingling? How does it make you feel? When you notice something relating to hope, so you may read an amazing story of hope, for example, where somebody's been hopeful and it's turned out well. How does that make you feel? Is it good? Does it feel nice? Does it feel positive? Do you want some of that? So
Mm.
notice it. And the same goes with all the other things. Joy. When did you last feel joy? What did that feel like? Did it make you laugh? Did it make you smile? Did it make you tingle? Did it make you feel tense? I doubt it made you feel tense. Not if it was joy. So noticing all these things. So noticing all these things is like putting fuel into the engine. So we're building up a store of positivity. We're not thinking positively per se. We're thinking about these little emotions that pop up from time to time. I would challenge anybody to go through a whole day and not notice some of those 10 emotions. So there's a challenge. Can you get through a day and not notice some of those 10 emotions? I don't think so personally, but do let us know. Let us know how you get on with it. So a great way to build muscles is to feed
Mm,
and notice these positive emotions that we're experiencing day in, day out. Okay, we're going to get some negative stuff floating around as well.
mm.
So here's another question. Have you noticed how the negative emotions seem to shout louder than the positive ones? They do,
Yeah.
it's true. They do. They shout. They almost drown out everything around you. So noticing that that's happening is a positive thing. You can even tell it to be quiet. I tell my negative emotions to shut up. If I'm out on my mountain bike and a negative thought comes into my head, I say things like, "Really? What is the purpose of this?" And, and usually it goes away because of that. So I don't dwell on it. I don't allow it to have airspace. So it's a, noticing positive emotions is a great way to build our positive mind muscles, and
Mm.
that's good for us. So what else
Yeah.
have we got, Patience? What
I
other
think I
things?
think I think to just wrap up on what you've just said, in terms of the noticing, you're gonna find that the more you are being conscious about noticing what's happening, and how when you feel joy, when you feel contentment, when you feel happiness or you're excited, what's gonna happen is, because you're now making a conscious effort to feel how it feels in your body, how it makes you feel in general and everything, your mind is going to associate to that. So therefore, when you are in a state where maybe you might not be in that flow of positive and excitement and joy, you will be able to, if you wish to, or if you're in that position, to re-envision what happened there, because that feeling, you now know what is, I don't want to say taste like, but it's a little bit like a taste. So, ooh, I've tasted this. This tastes like chocolate. You know what? Even though I'm not eating chocolate right now, I do remember this taste of chocolate. So it's a little bit like that. So you kind of come back again to that feeling like, oh, I felt this. So this is also happening. So we live in a world where we need to allow those two realms to be fully into our lives. So the positivity and the negativity, we need to feel them both the same way. There's not one or the other. We need to feel them both, so that we then know how to manage them, and then also we will know the triggers. So sorry. So for example, when I'm getting myself ready to go to the cinema, oh, I'm excited. Why? Because I've had this feeling already that when I was going to the cinema, I'm excited. I'm going to get some popcorn. I'm going to eat this. Or, my children love Ben and Jerry ice cream. So you have all of this excitement, this build up. And this is what happened. So that's like a trigger. We don't say trigger because it's a positive thing. But if it was a negative thing, you will hear, oh, what
Yeah.
triggers you? What triggers your negative, your negative state? Which I think it should be used for both, for the positive or the negative, the negative too. But basically, we hear that statement of triggers mostly in the negative side. There's also triggers in the positive side. So now it's understanding those and managing, okay, this is how I'm feeling right now because of this is happening. Yeah. So, okay, I remember, because I've strengthened my mind muscle. So I remember that I felt this way, like this. So, what is going to be my action now?
Yeah. That whilst excuse me, whilst we're mentioning triggers,
Mm,
a recent client said to me, "This," I'm not going to go into the detail. This triggers me, Steve. Okay, so we looked at what this was. One of the things that's important to know, whether we're talking positive or negative, is that many of these triggers are actually built in. They're fixed in our autonomic nervous
Mm,
system. They're kind of programmed in a little bit like a computer, that it's in there. And that's because the first time it happened, our mind said, hey, this is good, cool, or oh, this is a bit dark, don't like this. And we remember, not our mind, our nervous system has stored it. So next time it happens or something very similar, it recalls what happened. We respond in a similar way, and that's remembered. Therefore, the initial trigger, the initial memory is built upon, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's
mm,
why people like me who work with people who have some of these difficult memories have to spend a long time unraveling the onion to find out where this thing started. So that
yeah.
once we found out
And
where it
the,
started,
and there's
what,
yeah, you're right, Steve. And there's a book that will be good if you're a parent, you want to understand a little bit more about that. It's called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel A. van der Kolk. Sorry, I will try to put it in the comment so that you have it as a reference. But that's a good book that can also help you understand how our body keeps the score, not only of things that happen physically, but also the traumas or even the positive things that happen in our lives, that are not concrete, that are abstract.
yeah. Yeah, I think that using the title of that book, The Body Keeps the Score, is a perfect example relating to the engines of emotional positivity I was talking about. The body's keeping the score. You're building up these positive engine, the big positive engine. You're building that up. You're feeding it fuel. Your body's remembering all the time.
Mm,
I know it sounds a bit kooky because we're used to thinking that our mind is the thing that remembers everything, but there's more at work than just the mind. Just the mind is complicated in itself. So there's a lot to it. So affirming who I am, we also talked about a little bit a
mm,
little while ago. Patience and I at least did. What do I mean by that? So I'm going to use the example of my youngest daughter going to school or going everywhere in really baggy clothes, including my old shirts and t-shirts. So I was never allowed to throw away a shirt or a t-shirt for quite a long time. And if she liked the look of it, when I'd done with it, she'd say, I'm having that, and she would wear it. Now, I'm not a big guy, but she's quite small. So you imagine my male medium t-shirts and shirts on a quite a young woman look really baggy and didn't give anything away. You couldn't tell whether she was slim, broad, or whatever she was. There's no way of knowing. And then she got into the idea of making holes in jeans. And in the beginning, they were quite small and fairly tasteful. She even started buying jeans that already had holes in, and that was fashionable. So that was cool. But then she started to make these holes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until at one point, one of her teachers said, the holes in your jeans reveal too much leg. This is not good. Stop it. Don't wear them, which was a little bit naughty, I think, personally, of the teacher, but it made her feel then conscious of showing her legs or not showing her legs. And she started to feel a little bit uncomfortable about it. That's just one example using the teacher, but it happens with peer groups and all kinds of other groups, uh, parents of other children, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things that can influence how she felt about that. So then she gradually made a switch. She met a boyfriend and she started wearing different style of clothes. So quite feminine, some of it. Some of the shorts are really short, but they look cool on her. So she's conscious of what looks right on her for her and what doesn't look right on her. And the baggy stuff doesn't look right anymore. She started paying attention to the makeup. Red lipstick looks good on her, really good, and the eyes and so on and so forth. So she's really beginning to develop that side of her identity. And she gets support from us So she's building a positive muscle. This is how I feel good. This is how I look good. Mum and dad say it's okay, therefore it's okay. I am enough. Until somebody says that it's not right. And then what happens? Oh, doubt. Am I enough? Am I doing the right thing? All kinds of questions start to come up. And that for the young person is stressful. Add to the other stresses or stressors in their lives of exams. My daughter finished school a couple of weeks ago, and within 5 days of her finishing school, we got a letter from school telling her that during the summer holidays she has to find a placement that starts on the second week back of the new term.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a little bit of stress that
Yeah.
came at the beginning of the holidays. And guess what? She's not interested.
Yeah.
Not today. She might be in a couple of weeks, but not today. So we add to the stresses. So where can we go with this, patients? What can we do about
And
all these
I
stresses?
think you missed. So obviously, if you guys listen to our videos, you know already that we chat with Steve before we start the podcast. So basically, another thing as well that Steve forgot to mention is like when the teacher asked your daughter, you said your daughter responded, "This is who I am."
Yeah.
That's really important. You want to get your young people to be able to come to that realization that, you know what, this is who I am, to be able to affirm it and confirm it whenever. And I think it's not easy, and it's not every young people who have this confidence in themselves that they can say it like that. But what we are saying here is do exactly what we gave you as example. So from the beginning, what Steve shared as the positive and the negative, and how you create this idea into your mind and you strengthen your mind muscle. I think is really important to do on a daily basis. So all the time. This is not something that you do once in a while. This is something that you do all the time, because not only is gonna show you yourself as a parent how to accept and understand your own emotion, is going to also help you accept and understand your young people's emotion as well, and state of mind, or state of clothing clothing they want to wear, state of fashion, a state of music, or what it is that they really feel into. So in the I was just telling quickly this story. I don't know if you were gonna have time, but I'm just telling you quickly this story. So, on the contrary, what happened to me when I was a young person, when I was a so what happened is that I was born in France, live in France most of my young life, and then I moved and I lived in Togo in Africa, and between Togo and Ghana in for 3 years, and in Togo and in Ghana, and I think in Africa in general, there is no emphasis on the body, on your body shape. So you could be big, small, skinny, tall, short, whichever, you are the way you are. So everybody dresses the way they want to dress. There's no like, oh, you are too big, you shouldn't wear this, or you are too small, you should. There's none of that. So I grew up not being conscious, and my parents never made something big about the body. So I've never been conscious about my body. I was just like, just patience. So anyway, everything goes good and everything. And then I come back to France in my early teenage years. and I'm wearing a short. So I'm going to my friend's house. I'm like, hey, you want to go out? And the mom opens the door. The mom opens the door and she goes like, oh my God, you are wearing shorts. You are too big to wear shorts like that. She completely shattered my confidence. I had, first of all, I had no awareness that I was too big for something or not something. She made me have awareness. She made me conscious. It's as if she gave me a pill that became the negative pill in my mind. Like, oh my God, I need to be conscious about my body and this and that and this and that. And now and then I started to notice the things, the way people were looking at me, the way boys were looking at me in my class, because I developed quite quickly, but I was still a young girl. So in my mind, I'm still a young girl, I'm still patient, but for others, it's like, ooh, and then you get comments sometimes, things like that. You start to be more conscious about what you reflect to the world. And for me, it completely shattered my confidence. So I went from wearing everything to wearing baggy clothes. So I did the opposite of Steve's daughter, to wearing baggy clothes, baggy everything. I would wear my cousins jeans, my brother's even trainers. I will I will buy things that were like jogging, sports clothes and things like that. Yeah, it was for a couple of years until I came back to, I think, around 17, 18. Then I started back again to, go back into my feminine side, another. But it took a while. and
Yeah.
and so when we say strengthening your mind muscle, we're not just saying it as a general rule. Oh, we want to tell you to strengthen the mind muscle. The idea is that there's so many stresses, like Steve said earlier, so many stresses, there's so many things that are coming into young people's life that they need to have it easier, if I can say it like that, and having a flow of life that is good for them. And this is going to help them.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Something just came to mind relating to a book called The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Okay, The
Mm,
Prophet was written quite a long time ago, and it's a series of very short stories about life. It's great to read if you haven't read it already. There's a particular page or two in there about children. And so you've got the idea that there's a couple, man, woman, and they have a child. And the, the prophet says that the parents are the bow and they fire the arrow into the world. The arrow is the child, of course. So
mm,
once they've fired that bow, they let go of the bow, the string on the bow, the arrow is flying. So their job then is perhaps to guide it a little bit, to blow on it a little bit of wind and to keep it in one direction or the other. But it's not their job to decide where the arrow lands. If it lands at all, it might keep flying. So I think that's something useful to think about.
yeah.
If we're to help young people to develop these mind muscles, we need to guide. We don't need to tell them those shorts are too revealing or whatever that woman meant. We
Yes.
don't need to tell them that the holes in their jeans are showing too much leg.
Exactly.
That's not what they need. They need sensible guidance that's well thought out. And how many times do you hear people say, behave like an adult?
Mm.
Well, if you treat them like a child, they're going to behave like a child. So let's think about that as well.
Oh
So that's
yes.
enough from me. What about you, Patience?
Oh yes, I think that just made it. Yes, I think for today, that will be. I think we gave you quite a little bit of a piece. I think it's a piece that you can put um, in your tool for any times that you need this kind of reaffirming. But I would say this is like a day to day. So Please use this episode and relate it to your own life and see how it can help you and help your young people. All right, then. So we're gonna
Perfect.
leave you. I put the body, keep the score comment. I mean the reference into the comment. So if you need to have a look at this book, it's gonna be good. And also, I think Steve mentioned the Prophet. I don't know the author, but it is a book.
Khalil Gibran.
Khalil
Gibran.
G O B G R B G I.
Gibran.
Okay. There we go. All right. So that's it in the comment for you guys. We will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any comments or if you need anything, any help, any support in terms of your young people, even yourself as a parent, don't hesitate to contact us and we will help you. Thank you so much. You take care. Bye.
Take care, everybody.